Hello, good evening, or if you are watching this in another place, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Bianca Hughes. I am an associate professional counselor at the Jordan Stones Counseling Center in Roswell, Georgia. I primarily work with women struggling with perfectionism. So I really quickly wanted to talk to you today about boundaries. Boundaries is one of my favorite topics. It often comes up in the counseling room and just in our lives. And sometimes we get confused about what a boundary is, how to set a boundary. And so, one of the things that I just want to talk to you about today is just what is a boundary, and also how can we set boundaries with family and friends, and what to kind of expect to happen when you set a boundary. Because I find people are so surprised by people's reaction when they do set a boundary. So, first of all, just to let you know, boundaries are about setting a standard, often it's about your protection, and just setting that separation to protect yourself. So I often give the example of your skin. If you think about it, your skin is a barrier and it's a boundary for your underneath, for your flesh, so that's protected. When you think about the in the road, you have the yellow line in the middle to protect you from going to the other side, because if you go to the other side, then of course you're going to have an accident. So also, boundaries in our lives are about protecting us. It may be protecting us from harm, protecting us from danger, maybe because we want more freedom or we want more peace. And so often I heard people saying, oh, I don't want to set a boundary because I'm going to hurt so and so, or they're not going to like me. And which is fair enough, and that's a common statement, and that's very true. But the thing you have to ask yourself is, how does it impact you when you don't set a boundary? How has your life changed? Do you have more peace or do you have less peace? I always say people are going to be hurt regardless of whatever they do in life. And so it doesn't, yes, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but if you don't set a boundary, somebody's going to be affected, whether it's you or whether it's the other person. So you have to make that decision for you in that sense. And also, I just want to add, sometimes we do set boundaries. It is our for protection, but unfortunately, some people, they disrespect our boundaries, or they infringe upon our boundaries, or they become controlling towards our boundaries. And sometimes it is a bit unsafe. And so I always want to reiterate, make sure you're safe when you're setting those boundaries. Unfortunately, some people will disrespect your boundaries. So that's just a bit about boundaries. So what happens when I set a boundary? What happens when I tell somebody that I always maybe, I have to give the example of maybe I always give out my cigarettes, and this time I decided not to do it because someone's always asking me. So what generally happens is you're going to get a pushback from somebody, especially if you've been offering them cigarettes for a long time. So you're going to get a pushback from them. You're probably going to be like, they're not going to like you. They might insult you. And sometimes we can handle that. If we don't know the person, it's like, I'm going to be okay. But when we do like the person, or we have a relationship with them, it's going to be really, really difficult for us not to give in. So one thing I want to say is, when you start setting a boundary, a new boundary, that you have to be consistent. You're going to feel guilty, you're going to feel anxiety, you're going to feel some fear, you're going to feel some worry. But if you know you're setting this boundary to protect you, it's for your best interest, you're going to have some sense of peace and some sort of freedom, you're going to have to stick to it and be consistent. So you're going to have to kind of fight to maintain that boundary. Now, with loved ones, I find that people, often if maybe they're the pushover, or maybe they've just given in to family members, whatever way it's been, the family members are not going to like it. They're going to call you names. They're going to tell you that you've changed. They're going to tell you maybe you're crazy, or what are you doing? This is not going to work. And so you really have to stick to it. And I promise you, it's not going to be easy. Some people say, well, I set a boundary and it didn't work. And I say, well, why didn't it work? And it's like, well, they kept going on at me. And so I guess it didn't work. And I say, well, your boundary worked because of the fact that you're getting a response. But, also, at the end of the day, hey, Andrew, yeah, you're crazy for setting a boundary. So I was saying, it worked, but they're just shocked. They're just responding to you being different. And so you have to make that change to stay the same, and you have to make that change to stick to your boundary, regardless of what your family members and loved ones say. Often people say, I feel guilty. I understand. That makes total sense, but you have to make the decision. Can I ride this guilt wave? Because often we do feel guilty, and then we ride the wave of guilt, and then we feel so much better, and then we have so much more peace once we do that. The other thing, I want to make sure you guys are doing it when you're thinking about, am I setting this boundary for me or for somebody else? You will just want to think about, what is your purpose in setting the boundary? Now, if you are trying to set this boundary to manipulate somebody else or to control somebody else, that's not really a boundary. That's just control and manipulation. So you guys really have to think about that. Am I doing this for me, for my peace or my freedom? Or I'm just trying to control someone? Am I trying to get what I want? And if most of the time when we do set that boundary and people do realize that, then they basically know what you're doing. So just also remember that. But the most important thing I want to talk about is just the pushback that you're going to get. Frustrations, arguments, insults. You guys really going to have to stand your ground on that. And so many times I hear people say it was hard, it was tough, but I was consistent. But they feel so much more peace and so much more freedom. I had this new thing that maybe you have to come up with a safety boundary plan. Meaning what that means is that, okay, I set a boundary. And what am I going to do when I get pushback? How am I going to respond? Am I going to respond? Or maybe I keep getting a pushback. So maybe at this point, after so many pushbacks, I have to decide I have to walk away. Whatever that case may be, you have to do that. But as long as you stick to it, I'm going to say this again, stick to your boundary and that you are consistent, it will stick. But it's not going to be easy. It is not a walk in a park. And it is really scary. I think most people worry about, you 100,000% agree, Andrew. One of the things most people worry about is, I'm going to be rejected. So that's the big thing why people don't want to set a boundary. So my question to you is, if you set a boundary and somebody rejects you or doesn't respect your boundary, to be honest, that just tells you about that person and how they see you. We can always discuss it. We can always talk about it. But just know that you're going to have to set that boundary and you're going to have to stick to it. But in people who don't respect it, then that's a decision. I'm not going to tell you to leave them. I'm not going to tell you to end the relationship. But that's just a note for you to pay attention to and something for you to think about. So I think those are the main points I just want to put across today. Like I said, it was just a short video just to let you guys know that boundaries are about your protection. And they are difficult to set, and you are going to feel fear, you're going to feel anxiety, you're going to feel some worry, and you just have to be consistent. You might have to get a support team. You might have to just write out a plan about how you're going to implement this boundary and also how you're going to stick to it. So I just want you guys to remember, if anyone has any questions, I know I have seen a couple of people, just let me know if you have any questions. Hi, Babby. Yes, sometimes it's healthy to set boundaries. Yes, that is the whole importance of setting boundaries, about being healthy, because sometimes it's just toxic. We are in toxic relationships, and in order to be healthy, I have to set that boundary because I want my peace and I want my freedom. So thank you so much for everyone who joined. If you have any more questions, just please let me know. You can just catch me on Facebook. And thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.